Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Monday night, 8 p.m. The Live Lounge returns. It's a scorcher here in the UK. The Euros are on, but I think tonight could be a good one. Myself, Phil Bars, Jack Garwood, and Dan Simpson. Boys, I'm calling it early. We may need Fergie time tonight.
Busy, innit? Busy week on Planet Darts.
Just a little.
I don't know what you mean, boys. We've only got to talk about the best tournament on the entire calendar. That's it.
Exciting.
Just do 2 hours talking about that.
Yeah, big week ahead, isn't it?
It's a big week ahead, and it's also been a very big week on all darts as well. One of the busiest weeks we've probably had.
Yeah, once you put everything in, you got PDC, Modus has been busy, WDF events have been, I'll use the word busy, lots to talk about, lots going on. Yeah, it's all happening. And my Wi-Fi is working. The upgraded ultimate Wi-Fi in the Premier Inn in Halifax is holding up quite well. I was a bit untrustworthy of the Premier Inn's Wi-Fi, but it's holding up very well so far.
Don't jinx it yet.
Yeah. Let's jump into the chat room. Dal, Owen, Fraser, good evening. Mark, video staff, it says, hello from holidays in Kilburn, Germany. Nice. Of course, Anthony is in. Good to have you there from Texas, buddy. Fraser says, great interview with Matt Edgar. Guys, really enjoyed it. Cheers, buddy. Daniel is in. Schultz is in. Says, good evening. James, Dan, Matthew, Bill, good evening. Wayne, what will come to that? I'll star that one. Dan, Paul, we didn't say the Six Nations. What's the WDF event? There was events in Hungary, which Matt Edgar's going to have an interesting blog coming out on. Having seen some of the videos that he sent me, I'm slightly concerned for the Masters. I'm not going to lie, but hopefully it's just
it's not the same venue, is it?
No, but same organisers. He said. I might be wrong.
Oh. Ooh.
But some of the videos were like looked worse.
We have been crying about playing darts outside like they did in Dubai a few years ago, so you never know.
It was one of the videos I saw that the venue looked worse than Old Trafford in terms of rivers running.
Oh, now I don't know. Come on.
I believe me. When Matt's video comes out tomorrow, watch it and then say you don't disagree.
Worse than Old Trafford is a bold statement, isn't it?
We've also got some clips from Matthew Edgar and Matt Porter as well, 2 interviews that are on our YouTube channel. Good stuff. Right, we're going to start with the Euro Tour, guys, because of the significance of the World Match Play. Dave Chisnell is back in the winner's circle, and having won 3 Euro Tours last year, it's been a bit of a barren spell for Chizzy, but back in the winner's circle in a perfect time to play yourself into form.
I'll be honest, wasn't expecting him to pick up a title given the glut of form that everyone else is in.
And yes, he won the tournament. Like we cannot take anything away from that. But if you look at the overall performances from everyone, barring obviously we'll talk about that one game from Stephen Bunting, the level at the entire tournament for the whole weekend was some way off what we've been seeing of late. Lots of people winning games with sort of early to mid 90s averages. He did play well. Obviously, he won all of his games and he won the title. Become, I believe, the 4th most successful of all. And let's be brutally honest. The 2 people who are 1 title ahead of him, Gerwyn Price and Peter Wright, you wouldn't bet against Chizzy over the course of the next 12 months, moving into that 2nd place all-time spot, would you, Phil?
My issue with Chizzy is on his day, he is unplayable. However, across a day, I always fear there is a dud one there, which is part of the reason why to date he hasn't won a major, because the reliability isn't there. If you catch him when he's on, like when he absolutely did a demolition job at MVG at the Worlds, that Chisnall was capable of beating anyone on the planet. But we don't see that Chisnall enough for me.
Isn't it the same with 95% of players, though? We've been saying that about Peter Wright. He's got the ability to chuck one in. Van Gerwen's got the ability to chuck one in these days. Even Littler's got the ability to chuck in an 87 average if you catch him on the right down the Pro Tour. They play that much darts these days that ability to chuck one in is so much more common. I think if Chisnall was about at the peak and the level that we're seeing of Dave Chisnall now, 20 to 25 years ago, when you get 4, maybe 5 events a year where you see them up close and personal, he would have won something. I think he's been a victim of the success of the sport in that you play so many darts, you play so many tournaments that the opportunity to just have that one stinker at the wrong time has done him in a bit.
To a degree, but also fundamentally the action lets him down under pressure for me as well. That is also a caveat to that he can play so well, but under pressure, like real pressure of a TV title, would you trust the action to hold up over a real long format game? Say the match play, for instance, when he could have to play 3 games, 3 days, 3 long formats, would you trust that action under the greatest of pressure?
No, but I also think he's the least likely player to hit a 9-darter on tour because of said action, yet he's done it. Like the fact he has done it, the fact he's got over the line in Euro Tours, the fact he's got over the line in Pro Tours, and the fact he's hit 9 darters and produced that performance against Van Gerwen, which, let's be honest, his head-to-head record against Van Gerwen at that point was dreadful. Like he's showing these glimpses that actually it's there. The game is within Dave Chisnall to go on and win a major title. The game is within Dave Chisnall to go on and be a world champion. His A game is genuinely that staggeringly good. He had a brilliant run at the Lakeside the year before he made that transition as well. Like, he has got game, but like you said, he just keeps showing these moments that repeat themselves far too often.
Yeah.
I don't want to call him Terry Jenkins, but it seems to be the same fragilities. Even Mervyn King in PDC majors, you think back to that James Wade Masters final.
Yeah.
Sometimes the damage is done.
I agree. And do I see Chizzy winning a major? Oh, no, sorry. Can Chizzy win a major? Yes. Do I think he'll win one? I'm not convinced.
But again, this is darts summed up in a nutshell. All it takes is that one moment, that one spark. We sat here and thought Peter Wright would never get over the hump of losing to Van Gerwen in multiple finals. We sat here and thought maybe it wasn't going to happen for Michael Smith. It was definitely a case of when, not if, for Michael Smith. But again, the longer that went on, the longer people were questioning, well, actually, will he ever win one? Will he ever win the World Championship that he was destined to win from the age of 17 as a teenager that's beaten Phil Taylor at the UK Open, etc.?
It's an interesting one. But look, I'm super pleased for Chizzy. But his win, there were more questions outside of that. Obviously, only 2 events now until the match play. This was a huge weekend, and the draw, first of all, was an absolute stinker for James Wade, who now finds himself outside of the match play spots with 2 Pro Tours to go. This could bring the curtain down on a staggering record for James Wade of qualifying for match plays.
It's only £500 though, isn't it?
It is.
It's right on the wire. It makes it exciting. It does make it, like, you know, I if I'm honest with you, and I probably own up to it because I said it enough times, I thought by this stage we'd be, it'd take a wild run to a final from someone, in order to upset that match play position. I thought we'd be pretty much sealed in. But as we sit here today, we're not quite sealed in just yet. Not only that, but it's very, very tight. Very tight. £500.
Yeah, we'll come on to the race for the match play more in a minute. But the big guns, so to speak, really struggled in Leverkusen. Rob Cross threw in a very much below par Rob Cross performance, losing 6-0 with an 85. Going Price back off holiday, throws in an 85. Gary Anderson didn't go. Luke Littler wasn't there. Nathan Aspinall was been for a scan on his elbow. MVG struggled. The top boys are struggling at the moment.
Are they though? Or is, again, this is going to be a problem with that load management that we've been on about for the entirety of the season. They are absolutely blown out. You sat down with Matt Porter the other week. They've been on it non-stop for 22 weeks in a row now, where there's been a World Series, a Premier League, or a Euro Tour, or some sort of event for these guys to play, and specifically those 8 players. And part of this might be not taking their foot off the gas because the match play is only around the corner. But actually, if you're going at it now, the best time to hit form is in a week and a half, in 2 weeks' time. This is where you can afford a slight dip. They are securing the rankings for every major tournament coming up. This is the bit where they can go, do you know what, I'll have a holiday a few days before, then I'll still rock up to this event and keep my arm in and do it that way. As long as they can use the next block of Pro Tours to get themselves back up to the level that they need to be, or can flick that switch, so to say. Luke Littler showed he could flick that switch the other week. He comes back from a big holiday in America, rocks up, wins another World Series event. Can Luke Humphries do that? Can Michael Van Gerwen do that? Can Nathan Aspinall do that? Can the others do that? And right now, Michael Smith is doing what he always does. He's continuously playing. As we said, Nathan Aspinall's got that injury. Peter Wright, if you told me 2.5 months ago that there's a good chance Peter Wright goes into the World Cup as Scotland's most informed player, I'd have laughed you out of the room. But there is a severe lack of playing time for Gary Anderson of late, and Peter Wright is starting to look somewhat like the old Peter Wright, albeit quite unlucky at the moment.
He looked all right. Indeed, he was a bit unlucky in that game against Michael Smith. He played well. He didn't do a lot wrong. He lost one break. He averaged exactly the same as Michael, almost to the .00. He's playing all right, but it's the difficulty is he's currently playing all right. He's currently playing at the level that most of the top 16 are reaching comfortably. He's not, he's not playing at the level that he would want to play, and that the world ranking we've seen him hold for the last few years justifies. The level that he's managing to reach is, around what most of the top 16 are hitting regularly. He's not doing a great deal beyond that.
Yeah, look.
I am on brand tonight, look. Properly on brand.
But the load management is another argument, or we could do a whole separate show on that. But going into the match play, do you expect to see all of these players at the Pro Tours, or do you think they skip them and do their own thing to get ready?
I expect to see them all there. I'd expect that it'll be one of the lowest number backfills, if you like, step-ins, call-ups, whatever we call them, that we see all year. I would expect it to be almost stacked with every tour card holder that isn't ill or injured.
Yeah, there's plenty of travel time in between at the minute. There's plenty of space in this week or so of it. What have we got? Where are we? What's the date today?
24th.
So what have we got? Pro Tours next week on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the match play starts the following Saturday. So they've got another weekend of it. I expect everyone to be there. One, obviously, it's quite hotly contested in that race to the match play with Wade and Gilden, etc. You win one of them, you can jump from a massive outside shot as well. That brings another 10 to 15 players in. That are you going to give up on that chance for a one-shot chance to win and be in? We've seen people change their careers around a little. Joe Mernon springs to mind, winning a Pro Tour out of nowhere and getting himself into the match play, etc. So, look, you've got players under that chance. You've got the top guys that actually may have taken it a little easy over the last few weeks, but that's their only chance at competitive tune-up in the next few weeks before that match play. And it is right up there in terms of a major to win. You've got to get used to the heating conditions in the UK at the minute. It is sweltering today. The Matchplay is renowned for being that one tournament of the year where take your sunscreen, take a towel, get something damp around you in those breaks because it is roasting up on that stage, and just make sure you're ready for it. Because this is the moment where the Matchplay symbolises this is the part of the year to go now, isn't it? We've got the World Cup.
There is also
a little bit more of a break, but the second half of the season starts at the Matchplay for me.
We've also got quite a lot of like top, I was going to say players, but like I'd extend it probably to the top of players who are continuing to refine equipment. You know, there is a number. We could rattle off a big list of players who are arguably still getting used to new, if not specific darts and barrels, but setups as well. You know, there's a big list of players who are still fine tuning and still getting used to playing those different setups in a competitive environment. So, that's just another reason why I think we will see a pretty stacked house in those Pro Tour events.
This backs up to the Matchplay and the Euro Tour in one question. Dirk van Duijvenbode produced incredible darts at the weekend, back to the level that we expect from Dirk. Pain-free, injury-free for the first time in about a year. Has he left himself too much to do in these two Pro Tours?
I think he... Did he, though? Or did he have one good game against Chizzy Price, who averaged 85?
Because he was... best part, almost 97, 96, 97 against Clemens, 102.58, 94 against Schindler. Look, he ran out of steam against Schindler because he openly admitted he's not practicing properly yet. He hasn't built up to the full practice regime. I think he ran out of steam a little bit. But the 180...
But that's what makes me nervous.
Was on a pinhead.
Because he's going to have to go deep in a Pro Tour now to get to the Matchplay. And if he's running out of steam there, you know, what's he going to produce on an afternoon where he's got to put 3, 4, 5 games together, one after the other, in order to get what he wants? And the other thing is, as well, is because he sits in that position, not only does he have to put those, I know we'll come to the Matchplay, but it's not just the position he finds himself in, because he's not in green, because he's outside on both sets of rankings, he's outside. That his destiny isn't in his own hands. Like, unless he goes and wins 2 events, then in which case he's sorted himself out. But he's reliant on him performing better than other people. Now, whilst he does, you know, he seems to be able to find some form, you know, here and there. It's being able to find that level of form consistently better than Kevin Dutz, James Wade, etc., with a number of players that are within £1,000 of, you know, Mike De Decker's £1,000 behind it. De Decker's produced that level of darts in recent months as well, and could do that at the Pro Tour event. For me personally, I think it's still a bit early. I think the shoots are there, if you like. You know, that sort of the shoots of regrowth of him, like getting back to where he should be. But I think the Matchplay is going to come too early, and I think we're going to be looking at later in the season for him. Be interesting to see where he's at come, you know, towards Minehead. See what he can do. See what sort of form he goes into Minehead into that exciting part of the year.
Well, he's 13th on the race for Minehead, and he's 17th on the Pro Tour of Merit on the race for the World Grand Prix as well. So even if this World Matchplay does come a little too soon for Dirk, he is nicely placed for the back end of the year and to just keep building. So if he does miss out, it might not be the worst thing in the world for him to just keep building up. If you run up to the match play, overdo yourself in the next couple of days, get up on stage and average 86 again and have a bit of an issue because of the heat, you're going to start overthinking a little bit again.
That's it. I think that it looks promising, and I think he could have a really good third quarter. Third quarter, final third. That's where I'm looking at, third quarter. A good final third of the year. But yeah, I just think for a number of reasons that it might just come a bit too soon for him this year, Blackpool. Can't come soon enough for me.
So just looking at the Pro Tour money. So at the moment in the race for the match play, he is $3.5 grand. Is it behind Wade or is it 4.5?
Yeah,
I haven't got 3.5.
No, what, behind Wade or behind Kevin Dukes?
Sorry.
3.5 behind Dukes.
So on day one of the Pro Tour, even if Dukes lost first round, Dirk would have to get to the quarter final just to bridge that gap.
Just to level it up. And James Wade is between them. And as long as James wins one more match than Dirk van Duijvenbode, then he keeps him at bay. That's all he's got. James Wade just needs to look at two players. He needs to make sure Dirk doesn't win more than him, and he needs to win one more match than Kevin Dukes. That's the either side for James Wade.
So on the race for the match play, how far down are we saying could still cause an upset? Are we going to Decker or Rids?
Just Rids for me.
I would be happy to include De Decker just because I've seen some really promising stuff from him over the last year. We know he's got a day's good darts in him. He's got a really good day in him. And if he does turn up, De Decker could, it wouldn't be big news if he runs to a quarter final and then backs it up with a quarter final, a second or a semi final. We wouldn't all be shocked saying how the hell's this happened. And by the same token, every one of them has the potential to go out in the first round. So I think, and for that, I'd be happy just to. And I'm normally the one that tightens it up a bit, but I'm happy to go as far as De Decker. But Cam Menzies could just go and win a Pro Tour event.
Yeah. Oh, look, someone could go on the rampage.
If you asked me which one of them I thought was more likely to win one, I'd say Cam Menzies of that little block there. I think he's got it in him. We know it's electric. But in terms of grinding out a couple of days of progressing through the rounds and picking up money, I think De Decker is the, as low as we can go without a winner.
Right, on the spot. Who makes it? Who misses out?
I feel an urge to get in before Gob only because I think James Wade makes it. I just think he knows how to get there. He's done it too many times.
I am with Bill in the chat. Dukes and Wade in, Gilden out. Andrew Gilden's form since that UK Open has been catastrophic.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I think that's a fair and sensible shout that I'd be happy to go with. Andrew Gilden. In fact, I'd probably say over 2 days, money that can be picked up over 2 days, Gilden is as at risk as Dukes. even though there's a grand difference between them. What do you reckon, Phil?
I agree. Gilding is sinking quicker than the Titanic. I really want Dirk to make it. The fairy tale in me wants Dirk to make it, but I agree. I think Dukes and Wade make it.
Wednesday's going to be fun, isn't it?
Yeah. The draw could be carnage. Can you imagine if some of these are on the same board?
Well, let's be. Yeah, it could happen.
Yeah. It could be.
Makes it a bit more exciting.
Carnage, but good carnage.
Yeah, good, fun, exciting carnage. And then, but with that, I have very little sympathy for the player who doesn't make us an awful lot of chances and an awful lot of events. You know, whoever doesn't make at the match play because they didn't do enough on Wednesday, like they'll not be there because they haven't managed to reach that level consistently for a long period of time, and other people have.
So, based on who we think is going to qualify for the match play, that could change. I want 2 seeds and 2 non-seeds you are most concerned about right now with 3 weeks to play.
Ooh. Well,
still doing the Euro talk. How have we got onto this?
You kind of more because it was all into one, wasn't it? The 2 were so linked.
We've arced, haven't we? Well, do we all just say that in terms of seeds we're worried about? I mean, are we worried about Peter Wright? I am.
I think he looks right. The darts he was throwing at the weekend, by the way, were the initial World Championship darts.
Yeah, we see them
Is it cheating to say I'm worried about whichever seed draws Luke Littler?
Yes. The 2 seeds I'm worried about is Aspinall's elbow.
Yeah, Aspinall is an obvious one.
Joe Cullen's form.
Joe Cullen is in no form at all.
Joe Cullen's form. Sad to see. The 2 non-seeds I am worried about. Gilding, because he's in that spot at the minute. I don't think he'll get there.
I said based on the ones that we thought would get there.
Oh. Then I'm concerned for Brendan Dolan. And Petresco a bit, you know.
Yeah, Petresco would be my pick. I just think it's a right atmosphere, that place, isn't it? It's a right den of noise and heat and pressure and all sorts, and it could potentially be a little bit much for him. We've not seen a great deal. You know, how long ago was it? I mean, I was there when we saw that amazing Blackpool from Ratajski, but we've not seen anything close to that from him of late, and he could be an early whipping boy for somebody. You know, if one of the big guns draws Ratajski, then he could whipping boy early doors.
Yeah, Ratajski I'm concerned about.
Gurney's in and out as well. Gurney's up and down at the minute. He seems to find something now and again. But when he's good, he's good. But he's not finding it as often as I think he or anyone else would like at the moment.
Also, Ryan Joyce, because he's just not playing. Is it the last 2 Euro Tours he's pulled out of?
Pulled out this weekend ill. That was my favourite line of the entire weekend. We've had 2 withdrawals due to illness or injury through Aspinall and Joyce. Gary Anderson has got a severe case of they can't be asked.
I still think that comment might come back and bite him.
Cheeky.
We know Gary likes to pick arguments.
Cheeky.
Was it a notoriously difficult venue to get to?
Don't think Leverkusen's all right.
Well, Leverkusen's a proper place, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was the weather too nice to miss out on fishing?
I wonder if we will find that comment referenced, because obviously there's lots of media opportunities coming up in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And I wonder if we will see Gary address that at any point. My instincts are that we will see Gary address that at some point.
He's aware of the comment.
Good news.
And how would that have got back to him, Philip?
No, not me. He was the one asked what was said. So he'd obviously heard that something was said.
Maybe he just follows me on Twitter.
No, he was aware.
I think there will have been a queue of people desperate to tell him as soon as they'd heard that. Stirring the pot.
The elephant in the room, and I'm going to say it, there's a seed that I am concerned about, is MVG. Because although changes are happening, I don't think it's going to be in time for Blackpool. Although he's working on stuff,
There's also...
I'm not sure if it will be in time for it to come through in Blackpool.
I think more so than a lot of the other players, how I feel about what MVG will do in Blackpool depends very much on the draw. I feel that if he does draw somebody like a Petresco, like a Ratajski, someone that he can, even with the way he's drawing at the minute, dominate early in that opening game, I think it will allow him to play his way into the top. I think at the minute he has to play his way into things. He's not going to walk onto a stage and feel very comfortable and feel like he's at it straight away. I think if we see the draw, I'll either think, oh, that looks like he'll do some damage, or I might be a bit nervous for him because, you know, that he could, let's be honest, there are some very, very naughty potential draws in there for him.
Oh, there are some stinkers for him. Absolute stinkers in there. But look, the back end of the year, I think, listening to what's being said by him in that, I'm comfortable the back end of the year. I'm just not sure it's in time for the Winter Gardens. But when do you think the draw will be out? So, at best, Friday. I think more likely Monday midday-ish.
Yeah, PDC team don't work weekends unless they have to.
I know, that's why I said it either Friday or Monday, I think.
Yeah, more likely Monday, I think.
Yeah.
Monday with a schedule Wednesday for a start on, is it Saturday?
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. But taking us on, PDC World Cup. Gob, your favourite tournament kicks off on Thursday. The pairings are set. Kim Huybrechts is fit. I'm looking forward to that first meeting of Team Belgium after Dimitri's interview after winning the Pro Tour. I don't like him. We don't get on. I don't care. It's going to be interesting when they meet up at the team hotel.
They play Singapore first, by the way, who are absolutely no pushovers. Paul and Harry Finn just staring at them while they fight amongst themselves is going to be hilarious.
If anyone else crowdfund, I've been the hotel manager to put them in bunk beds. The first argument of the weekend is who gets top bunk.
after last year, do you reckon they've already both had the memo? You will get on stage.
Yeah, I would have thought so. But I don't know. There's a cynic in me that thinks that they know that does numbers. They know it does numbers.
Yeah. Look, the 4 seeds get a bye through to Saturday. That is England, Wales, Netherlands, and Scotland. Next stage for me is this: is no one gets a bye. They're all in the draw from the start.
Has to be.
Correct.
If 4 teams getting a bye is a sacrifice we have to make for pairs tournament, I think I'd rather go back to the old one. No team should get a bye like that. It's crap.
No, silly idea.
It's even worse than that bye system there. That 4 bye is an even bigger irk of mine than the Grand Slam double seeding tournament.
I don't think it's that bad.
It is.
The problem is, though, is if you want everyone in the draw, then you can't have 40 teams, can you? You've either got to go 64 or 32.
48.
48. Can we get another 4 teams? I'm not sure.
What do you mean?
We're already pushing it, really, aren't we?
Sorry, could you get another 8 teams that are going to be competitive? There's 40 at the moment. You need to find another 8 teams that are going to be competitive. I think that's a push.
There's some of these that aren't going to be competitive, isn't there? When did being competitive in the World Cup become the when did that become the barometer?
Well, who aren't there that have been there in recent years? Brazil?
Yeah, but right now, can you name me 2 Brazilians that are going to be competitive?
No, but do I think Bahrain are about to be competitive? No, that's part of the fun of the tournament.
Evening, mates. Hope you are good, buddy. Always good to have you in.
The Kingdom will be able to buy 6 teams, like they've bought 13 spots in the Pool World Championships next year.
You watch. If they paid you enough money, you'd represent the Kingdom at the World Cup.
Yeah. With a scimitar in my hand to chop anybody else off who dared commit blasphemy against my king.
India, that's who we haven't got this year.
Oh, yeah. Big problem with one of their players, though.
There's a billion people that live there. Just because he's not playing, bloody hell. You can't just, there's one lad who's cocked up. There's a billion other people wanting to play darts. So get India in.
We can have Nitin Kumar and Bhav Patel. Yeah, we'll have India. India, Brazil.
Thailand.
I missed one there.
No Thailand this year?
Yeah, Saudi Arabia. The Kingdom.
Thailand aren't there. Norway are. Oh, Norway are there. Sorry. Norway are there. Thailand aren't.
Costa Rica. Yeah.
Who else? What we'll see at the World Cup is, because it is a country, and if you don't want this, you're a maniac, because it'd be funny as. We want to see the Vatican City, surely.
Yeah.
Monaco.
With the dog collars on.
Right, so...
Yes, Greece aren't there. Look, we're nearly there 8 teams now. We need more John Michael. John Michael is the funniest player I've ever refereed for in my life, by the way. If he hits 2 on 1 and doesn't know what it is, he just stands there and goes, ease?
You didn't obviously watch Richie Burnett today. Oh, my God.
I did, and I turned it off because I find it irritating. Where were we?
The groups. Group A, Belgium, Singapore, the Philippines. Group B, Northern Ireland, South Africa, Switzerland. Group C, Germany, New Zealand, Finland. Group D, Australia, Japan, Hong Kong. Group E, Ireland, Lithuania, Chinese Taipei. Group F, Austria, China, Ghana. And then Group C, Poland, Norway, Hungary. Group H, Czech Republic, Bahrain, Iceland. Group I, Croatia, Malaysia, Canada. J, France, Latvia, Denmark. Tough one. K, Sweden, Spain, Gibraltar. And L, the United States, Portugal, and Italy.
J and L, they've got to be the tightest, surely. France, Latvia, Denmark's got some potential.
J
and United States, Portugal, Italy's got some potential as well.
I think C as well. I think New Zealand could cause an upset right now.
The new WDF world number 1.
And Hopo Puhal started to play really well as well.
He's played some great stuff.
That's what I mean. And Ben Robb is in incredible form right now. I'm looking forward to that.
New Zealand could be a call. But is that primarily because Gabriel Clemens is out of form at the minute? Because if Gabriel Clemens was in form, then you would say that even the New Zealand team playing well, you'd still expect Schindler and Clemens to come past them fairly comfortably. But Clemens is a way off at the minute, isn't he?
Yeah, no, I've never made it a secret. I've never been convinced about Clemens at the top level. Is he a good player? Yes. I'm not sure he's got that gear to go to the next level. Right now, he's arguably Germany's third best player.
Oh, I've lost my lid.
But Group A, we'll do the groups in order. Who are we saying comes through Group A? Chat room, get involved as well. Who you think is going to come through these groups?
Well, unless they have a punch up on stage, and one hoys the other one off the stage, then it will be Belgium, won't it? You're shaking your head. You don't.
Yeah, I think their chemistry is
You
so
think
off.
they're gonna?
Even without
Who
a
beats
punch
them?
up, I just think the rhythm. Look, Dimi will try and control it. Kim, I think, prefers a much quicker pace. I think two people that absolutely will not be put out by the speed that the pairs is being played at is the Philippines. Toilo and Perez. Look, we've seen Perez give Whitlock the absolute runaround at the World Championships before. Toilo, quite an impressive character as well. I think this year is the year. And look, we say this a lot about the Philippines in the past couple of years because we expected Lawrence Alagan to go and deliver, etc. But the fact he's out of the team for the first time shows an awful lot about the quality of these two.
Yeah, I agree. We've seen some really good stuff from them on tour. Are we giving the Limbs much hope?
Paul's still winning events out there.
I was going to say, Paul's still doing a bit on the Asian tour.
They're very, very good when it comes to this event, but do I think they can spring it in this group? No.
No. I still think Belgium come through for me.
Philippines for me.
Dan?
Belgium. I mean, I have to say Belgium. It's anything else is just trolling, really.
Group B, I think this is a foregone conclusion. I think this is a very, very comfortable group for Northern Ireland, personally.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Bruno Stockley. I think if that was somebody a little bit more experienced next to Belmont for the Swiss, then maybe we might have seen something. Look, Josh Gurney spoke an awful lot about wanting to be in that side with Josh Rock. We didn't hear so much from Josh about picking a partner, etc. But the fact that Gurney was so outspoken about it perhaps suggests there'd been conversation about those two being excited to play together. Now, the fact that is Roland might be a little...
Did you not hear Josh Rock at the Premier League in Belfast when they had him on stage? He said he wanted to play with Gurney.
Yeah. So, look, closer in age and tenacity, I guess. Will that slow Rock down? Potentially, but not enough to not get out this group.
No, I think this one's fairly fairly comfortable. Are you making it 3, Dan?
Yeah, I can't say anything other than that happening.
Group C. Now, this one's interesting. This is Germany, New Zealand, and Finland.
Again, I think whilst we have seen great stuff from other people, and we've seen bang average stuff from Gabe Clemens, I think Schindler is the key to this group, and I just think he'll have too much. Even carrying, I mean, I wouldn't like to think Schindler was carrying Gabe Clemens, to be fair. He's a big lump, isn't he?
I was going to say, he might need a hernia up after her.
But I think it's a German. Although I think we might see some good games in this group. I still think that Germany is. I mean, home team. Schindler's in good form. Crowd on side. Hard to not pick Germany.
Go.
Yeah, I think the same. What I will say is don't expect this group matches to be quick. Even at 5-0, Schindler gets on with it a little. Clemens, I think, is a little more measured, but the Finns definitely aren't the quickest, and I think Puar might do a job at slowing it down for New Zealand as well.
Yeah. I'm going for an upset. I'm going for New Zealand. Group D. Now, this is interesting. Australia, Japan, Hong Kong. Now, all the smart money is going to be on Australia, and rightfully so. But there are players in both Hong Kong and Japan that excite me. In Man Lot Lung and Tomoyata Goto, from what we saw at the World Championships. If Whitlock is not on, this could be interesting. Look, if Simon Whitlock plays well, Australia wrap it up comfortably. But if Whitlock is off, this group is interesting because of those two players, I think.
I agree with you completely, and I think we will see some really good games in this group. But I think that Simon Whitlock gets up for a world. I think he as much as we've seen in, like, I was going to say up and down form, but we haven't seen a great deal of up of late. But he manages to find things. There's something about putting the Australia shirt on and playing with somebody else that seemed to bring the fire out of him a little bit. And I think Whitlock will get right up for it. An Australia win.
Are you agreeing, Gob?
I think I am, yeah. Look, Damon Hett was playing some phenomenal darts. I know this isn't how it worked, but if the pairing was somehow Goto and Manlock Lung, then I'd go, do you know what? That as a duo could
Yeah.
Australia right now. They've both got one really solid player that we've seen before. Now, I'm not saying that the other players can't do anything, Lockyin Lee or Ryusi Asamoto, but the lack of knowledge around them makes it that little bit more difficult to predict that upset against a team that are still together as a side that have won it within the last 2 years. So, yeah, Australia for me.
Yeah, I think Australia, but I think it won't be as comfortable as what the odds are suggesting.
No, I'd agree with
Group E, are we saying Ireland strong favourites?
Yeah, it's hard to say anything else. It's not, it's challenging to even be sort of slightly combative in this because they weighted, or a lot of the groups are weighted so heavy into one favourite, aren't they? That yes, I think we might see some interesting games, and so Lithuania is an example of one of the countries that we see as we work through the draw, where sort of, yes, there's talent there, but it's sort of very one-sided talent, and Labanauskas could turn up, play amazing darts, but he's only 50% of the equation. and you've got to expect that the two Irish lads on their B game should just through it.
Well, Team Barry's upturning form is a massive plus for Ireland as well, because he's starting to look like the Keane Barry we expect again. So, yeah, I think Ireland come through this one.
Ireland for me, yeah. They were wrong. I thought Labanowski's played pretty well at Super Series the other day.
Yeah.
But not enough at the level that we've seen from him before to get past this Ireland team.
Again, going into Group F, Austria, strong favourites. See any challenge there, or?
I haven't, if I'm completely honest, I haven't got the depth of knowledge on Chinese darts to know that what I see, because I don't watch it a lot, I just can't with the time difference in my life. A lot of what I see is numbers. I see results and I see averages, and I see what's reported and I see what's on statistics. With that, it's difficult to give them a chance against Austria, but these are individual games on a stage where anyone can have a stinker. We know that there's some talent there. Is the talent consistently reaching a level that the others are? Probably not, but it could happen.
Zong is very good for China. I rate Zong highly. But, again, I don't know if he's got enough alongside him.
He's got one of the best walk-ons of all time alongside him.
You raise me up.
Yes. Yes.
I also seem to remember him celebrating hitting the board at one point. In front of nobody.
That.
The thing, this isn't a great Austria team anymore. Mensah is not the threat that he was 10 years ago. Roby John, the same. Is he even the best RJR right now?
There's a debate.
I was going to say there's a case to be made not.
I just don't see enough from either of those anymore. Any other group, and you'd be going, actually, there could be a strong upset here. And if it is going to be anybody, it is going to be China. Don't get me wrong, seeing Ghana there with Sudesh Fitzgerald again and Norman Madu, look, it's okay. They come through that Latin America qualifier again. Do I think they've got enough to upset the Austrians? No. I think if we see an upset, it's China.
Yeah, I agree, but I think Austria come through.
I think Austria are lucky that they haven't got, a New Zealand or someone in their group, because I think they are one of the weakest teams in that position, number one. And yeah. I think they've got a fairly fair... Their draw could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Group G, Poland, Norway, Hungary. Again, are we saying Poland?
I think so, just because they've got the two... They've got two... Yeah, and it's the two established players. It's not. They're not a one-man team. They're not. You would expect them both to be able to reach a level that combined, the other teams shouldn't be able to get to. So I think Poland should be justifiably a very heavy favourite there.
Yeah, same for me. The Hungary team is a bit different to what we're used to seeing. No Patrick Kovacs, no Nando Bezek, no Paul Zikli or anyone like that. So, yeah, I'm with you, Dan.
Czech Republic, Bahrain, and Iceland.
Don't expect much from the Norwegians.
I think Group H is quite a poor group, if I'm being honest. I think this is one of the worst groups there is. I look at the Czech Republic. I think Sedlacek is playing well. I think Gavlas isn't. I think he's way off at the moment. We've seen the Bahrainians in the World Series, and I don't really know what to expect from Iceland.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But again, I think they've benefit. I think the Czechs benefit from the group that they find themselves in. because I put them sort of with Austria in that weaker of that set of position 1 teams.
Again, if you had New Zealand in that group over Bahrain or Iceland, I think that
exactly. Yeah, 100%. I think there's others sat in that. Latvia. I know we'll come to Latvia in a minute. There's teams that could do a bit of damage from position number 2, and the Czech Republic probably benefit from not having one of them in their group.
Yeah. We're saying Czech Republic come through that because of the lack of quality in the rest?
I think so. Look, it depends how good this dude Dura is. Because Bassem Mahmoud last year played out of his skin. He averaged 90 and won the pairs games. He just had Abdul Nasser Yusuf next to him averaging 45.
Yeah.
To put that into context, I asked my partner to throw randomly at the board for 15 darts, and she averaged more.
Be interesting. Group I, this is intriguing for me. Croatia, Malaysia, Canada. I also think the way the fixtures have worked out in this game is a massive advantage for one team.
Yep.
And it isn't the seeds.
Nope. And I'm not going to. It's the first one that I'm gonna pick. I'm not even picking from position number 2. No. I think Canada come through this. I think the draw's perfect. I fancy Canada to beat both of those teams. And Canada, one of those teams I was talking about, that the likes of Austria and the Czech Republic have got away with murder, not finding themselves having to play a Canada, and Croatia haven't got off with that. So for my pick here is Canada. I don't know if there's any value in it. Does anyone check the odds?
I like the fact that Croatia play Malaysia first on the Thursday. Canada don't play till the Friday. So the likelihood is they will probably play Malaysia first and then go into a winner-takes-all game with Croatia in the evening. The way the draw has worked out, I think is perfect for Canada.
Oh, odds are shit.
Are Canada favourites?
No, well, virtually there's Croatia. It was just the bookie I happened to open first. Croatia 5-6, Canada 19-20, Malaysia 16-1. So it's basically toss of a coin.
What are you saying, Gob? Who's coming through this one?
Again, this stinker of draw compared to some of the groups we've just spoken about. Really impressed with Kirchmar the other day. Kubavak, very, very good talent. I actually think the decider in this is David Cameron. Matt Cameron was playing solid, won in MSG out of nowhere. Didn't particularly like his attitude around that, but he did. He got over the line. He won it. I think he also won the Canadian singles this weekend at Nationals.
Yeah,
I saw him in the final. The absence of Cameron and Long and Cohen, that perhaps I didn't see the draw previous, but the absence of one of them in the final, perhaps there's something about it. But I genuinely think the form of David Cameron over the last few weeks and months has been exceptional. I thought he got a terrible draw at MSG to get Luke Humphreys. I tipped him for quite big things before that. I've seen him playing Reading and various other events as well, and he looks to be solid again right now, giving it a real shot without a job right now. So darts is his soul. Yeah, let's give it a crack. If not now, it never will be. So I think he is the X factor or the decider in this. If he gets going, then Canada win.
Yeah, I'm going Canada to come through. France, Latvia, Denmark in J.
I think this is a really tough group. I think Latvia can always do something. Madas Rasmus got a bit of something about him, hasn't he? And it's whether or not the two French players can just both, if they can just both average 89, then they'll win.
I'm not sure Labra's got that in at the moment.
But that's the thing. It doesn't need to be monstrous. Like, it just needs them both to turn up and play all right. But if either one of them chucks a stinker, they could be really exposed because, like, and I keep going back to Latvia, but I just because I do think that Rasmus Gorba has something about him. He scores well and he finishes well. And Melderis is, like, he's not a bad player. Won 2 WWF events last year. Like, if he turns up and chucks 85, which he's capable of doing, very capable of turning up and chucking 85, then Rasmus could take care of the rest. If the French don't, if the French aren't on it, he just needs to turn the wheel and almost allow Rasmus to captain the team, so to speak, and get him over the line. But
yeah,
if I had to put my 50 pence on it and put my money where my mouth was, then I'd probably have to say France, as much as I don't really fancy them. I think it's riskier to back against them than it is to back them.
Go on.
Yeah, it's France for me in this one. I just think, given what we know about the other side, given that actually there's an argument that all three of these sides are one-team players right now. Jack Larber is going through that terrible second season syndrome. He is a player who, that tour card came too early for Jax, but it freed up Larber to then go and have another year and get his tour card and not have to worry about being the first and the pressure that he had done of everything with French darts. They still are the best two-man side in this group for me. And I think that just might be the difference.
I agree. I think they may fall over the line, but I don't say that with any conviction whatsoever. K is an interesting one. Sweden, Spain, and Gibraltar. Because Sweden, I don't even think this is their best team. I think the best Sweden in the world right now is not there.
Correct. But De Graaf is having a very, very good year, which shows how well how well the player that isn't there is playing, because it's absolutely amazing. But I think the Swedes will be very comfortable in this group. I know that there is a potential to sort of fantasy book a different team, which there is for a couple of teams. We could fantasy book the United States and Canada and a few other teams as well. But I still think that the players that are there should get the job done.
I think this is the best group of the group stage.
I think it is, but I think there may be an upset.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant little mix, and I'm struggling here because the Gibraltars probably haven't kicked on as much as the hype around these two youngsters has been around for the last couple of years. They played JDC, they played Dev Tour, etc. They are still two solid talents, but they need to kick on a little bit. And
they haven't gone
if you're going to keep Dyson Parody out of a team, my absolute hero, you need to start delivering, because if not, we need more Dyson back. Man's brilliant. I think there's a serious amount of overlooking of these Spaniards.
I like the look of the Spanish team.
They are two very steady. They've both got very similar actions. They've both got a setting mechanism into it. So they're not going to be thrown out by slow play or fast play. I think they're just going to keep going and going and going, nice and solid over and over. And like you said, the Swedes are solid. Lakaziak is class, but when you consider the fact that Harrison isn't there, that Tingstrom isn't there, the talent that the Swedes have managed to leave out is such a conversation that might just be enough to get under the Swedes, because then they're playing under pressure of justifying those two being the top two.
I agree. I'm going for Spain. I'm going for the upset.
I think I might have to go Spaniards as well, Although, like you said, De Graaf has been playing some phenomenal darts of late.
Group L. Now, again, this is interesting for me. USA, Portugal, and Italy. I like the look of the Italian team, the same as last year. Portugal, very much a one-man band. And again, for me, this isn't the States' current best team available on form. Although Danny and Jules, both very talented players, right now, Jules isn't playing to the level we know he can. He even says it himself that he's been struggling with his grip, struggling with the equipment. And I think the USA team could be better for this tournament.
I think there's no doubt about it.
At the minute.
I was going to say, I think there's no doubt about that. I think you could potentially, in a dream, if you wanted to field your best, most informed players, you'd probably swap them both out, wouldn't you?
Spellman and Bond.
Laudby's done all right on the Pro Tour, but look, Spellman is the State's best player for me.
He is at the minute, certainly in the last 6 months.
Spellman makes that USA team a lot better. But this is the team.
Portugal are a one-man band. Portugal are a one-man band, and he seems to have lost his maracas at the minute. So even that one-man band isn't playing. Like, even the one-man band isn't playing properly at the minute. So it's sort of it's a one-man team, but he's a mile away from where the player that we talked about, 2 and 3 years ago, going into the World Cup, looking for him to carry a team. I can't sit here drinking San Pellegrino bottled at sauce and not go with an Italian victory, can I?
Look, don't get me wrong. Michele Teresa has been brilliant on tour. I'm gutted Massimo Dante's Tash isn't here this year, because that is some Tash.
Heartbreaking.
But could the Italians cause an upset?
Yes.
I think it's on. I'm going for it. That's my pick.
I think USA but I think the Italians caused them a huge scare. Where if Spellman was in that side, I think the States cruise it. But I think that Danny will turn up and may just get the States over the line in the group.
Italy for me.
I wouldn't be shocked, like I said, if Italy come through that. Right. So we've done the groups. Who wins the World Cup and who do they beat in the final?
I think that because of the form that a number of the world's top players are in, this is the most obvious World Cup to pick for a few years. I think it's certainly for a few years. I think because neither of the Welsh players are anywhere near where they've been going into previous World Cups form-wise, as are neither of the Dutch players, as are neither of the Scottish players. And there's 3 of the 4 seeds who both of their team members are miles away. England can't beat Scotland, just for those picking it in the chat room, because they are seeds 1 and 4. So England could only beat Scotland in a semi-final. If you're picking seeds, you've got England and Scotland on the top half of the bracket and Wales and the Netherlands on the bottom half of the bracket. For me, it's just a question of who do England beat. And I am very reluctant to pick another seed. It's where everybody else ends up in that draw, isn't it? It's who. That's the question. If Depends who ends up on the bottom of the draw. But let's make the assumption that they're on opposite sides of the bracket. Predict that England beat Northern Ireland in the final.
Gob?
I had a look at them, you know. I also quite naively think England will win the World Cup. It's coming home. It's got to. At least someone will. We'll make the Indians cry in the cricket, and then we'll win the darts as well. Why not? It'd be funny. It is just picking an opponent. And the problem is that I'm looking back over the groups now to see if I fancy somebody other than the Welsh or the Netherlands. And the teams that I'm thinking, yeah, actually, they might go deeper. The teams that I've also said might struggle to get out of their group. It's such a weird mix of this. Like, if Australia find themselves in the bottom of that, could I fancy them? Yes. But do I think they're going to get past Japan and Hong Kong to quite stern tests? We think there's a chance they might not if Whitlock isn't firing. And do I fancy Poland or Croatia or Canada? And because of that, I'm literally going to have to go England beat Wales. 1 beats 2.
I really struggling to not see the 4 seeds in the semi-final. The only question mark is the Dutch.
Mm-hmm. Poor chemistry and a Van Gogh struggling for form.
Croatia just missed a penalty as well.
I'm watching the Spain game. They are crap. We are crap.
Yeah, look, I certainly can't see England, Wales, and Scotland not getting to the semi-final.
Yeah. Also, I'd just like to point out for Matthew in the chat who said Scotland to do better than they did in the football. They already have. They've made it past the group stage.
I agree. I think this is the best England team since Taylor and Lewis. And I think England beat Wales in the final again. Sorry, the same as you, Gob.
Yeah.
Evening, Chris. Don't worry. I will be in Trilogy. Don't worry about that.
Shorts and flip-flops, the gimp.
Yeah. Look, I just don't see anything other than England winning it. I just think they're better as a pair than anything there. So that is that. Right. This weekend, moving on, we had the Six Nations and probably more controversy or debate certainly off the board than on it, gents.
It never fails to deliver some talking points, do they, over at the WDF?
This isn't a WDF event. This is
No.
a separate.
Oh, no, sorry, no. Yes, correct.
It actually means they don't need to follow WDF rules. They can make up their own if voted in by the majority of the nations the evening before the tournament starts.
Or halfway through?
The majority of those rules, this is self-funded, self-event, neutral from governance, doesn't carry any weight.
Have just scored.
Was it a follow-up from the penalty that you said he missed?
No. I'll say in a second. Yeah, look, everything was going. Modric has just scored though after missing the penalty. Look, there was it was all going all right until the England-Netherlands game on the Saturday when it came up on Dark Connect or first, didn't it? That the game wasn't happening, God.
The YouTube stream. It was named as that.
Live.
It was Friday. It was meant to say place on Friday.
Friday, and it played Saturday. Yeah. Forget the politics of shouldn't as an event, and this isn't just darts, by the way. This is in general. once the fixtures and schedule are confirmed for any sporting event, I don't like meetings happening pre or during any kind of tournament. Forget darts, just in general.
No, that's my and I think we've got a sort of a fairly good picture of the way things unfolded. But I think my issue with the whole scenario isn't really anybody's particular approach to it. It's the fact that these things have been taking place like while games should be going on. Like the key is to get these things, these discussions and these meetings and these arrangements and these decisions and everything else done ahead of time, so that when you get to an event, like the event flows. Surely that's what anybody organising any event of any sort wants to do. And rules in terms of where you have to be to play your game and whether or not you are there or aren't there, or you've gone to take a piss and you've not turned up at the right place at the right time, and unfortunately that excludes you from carrying on in the event. And I don't like the idea that any event at whatever level that things are being sort of discussed and talked about and decisions are being made like on the hoof, because whenever you do that, whenever you make decisions as you go along, you open yourself up to make decisions that are not fully thought out properly. Because what you start to do is you put yourself in a position whereby your primary concern is for that event to continue. So then you start to make decisions that aren't based on what you actually want to happen and what the people around you want to happen. And you know, you're not making strategic decisions. You're making very short-term decisions based on the next hour and the next 24 hours. And what you can do in those times is you can set yourself a precedent that you might want to unpick at some point. And by allowing those conversations to take place and entering into them, that's where it just becomes murky and speculation. Like, there will be forever, regardless of who you could talk to, every single person that went into a meeting room and find out what their view of what went on in that meeting room was. But you will not stop the rest of the world speculating about what was and wasn't said in that meeting room. And sooner or later, that becomes the story rather than what actually happened. And I just think, don't do it. Just don't do it. Do it in advance. Tell everybody what your position is. And then move through. Well, regardless of what your position is. You can't start. You can't start playing it as you go along. Because, like I say, you make precedents for yourself that you can't unpick that you might want to, and you aren't with the best will in the world and with the best of intentions, you are not going to make the best decisions for the players and the teams involved if you are making it up as you go along. And it's not productive for people who should be playing darts to be sat on their ass while people are still having meetings at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I fully agree that whatever stance players have, team managers have, team representatives have, that, and this is, like I said, this is not just in darts, that once the format is done, the schedule is done, that you stick to that. If something
can't get to tomorrow night and say, actually, we fancy playing Luke Shaw, so can we play it tomorrow?
I just don't think for the event that any of that should have happened.
I agree. But the fact that it did is down to the organisers of the event allowing it to happen. Like, someone has to allow that to happen. And, you know, and this is the problem, is it requires decisiveness. And to be decisive, you have to have already have a structure of thought and decision making. Like, if you've already made decisions on a number of things and you've got those decisions, you can then be decisive when things happen. When somebody comes up to you and says, we want to do this, you already have a decision making framework, and you just apply that decision making framework and you say, well, the answer is this, because I refer you back to that fucking email that we sent 2 weeks ago that said that. Job done. The conversation's finished. It's over. Everyone's playing darts again. And it's foolish of organisers of any event to enter into debate mid-event.
Yeah, I agree. We reached out to people and we've had clarification on stuff, and it's frustrating, Gob, isn't it, that the focus has been taken away from what should have been a brilliant event.
Yeah, I found myself watching the stream at times this weekend. I favoured that over the Euro Tour, if I'm being honest, just to keep an eye on what was going on. There was people that I know or refereed through the Super Series or various other players that I fancied keeping an eye on. And again, the focus is away from that a little bit. Part of the reason we're talking about it tonight. Would we have spoken so much around the Six Nations? Probably not. Are we now going to give it 20 minutes of airtime on this show? Yeah, we are, because there's a conversation around a continuous debate that we've seen with England darts in particular. They've got a particularly divisive statement on their website that we may have missed when it was first published. I'm not really sure what they're saying through it at the minute, but it certainly doesn't look like that. The attitude around trans people's participation in women's darts at the minute is continuously a hot conversation within the sport. In fact, it's not just this sport. Again, I bring up the pool world, which I've been involved in for a number of years. A trans player won a world championship over the weekend. A men's player won the men's event. The men's page was allowed to comment on. They turned commenting off on the women's event. So subsequently, people took out their frustration on the men's post. But yeah, it's just. Look, we sat down with Matt Porter. The PDC stance isn't about to change anytime soon.
Well, I've got that clip. I'll play it in a bit when we talk about the stances.
It feels like the other side of the sport need a similar message right now.
Well, I've asked the WDF for clarification on this, that if one of the home nations, because of the statement that was put out on England Darts, that if trans players were banned from entering women's events through other WDF nations, not just England Darts, but that's anyone, does that affect the ranking? Because the WDF stance is that trans females can play in their events and can qualify for Lakeside X, Y, and Z. So you've got the two leading bodies at the top of the organisations. You've got the PDC doing their thing, and then the WDF looking after that side of it. The two heads, by the look of it, aren't going to change their stance. Whether individual countries, organisations change their stance is another thing. But if the top ones aren't changing it, then where do the other nations then go? Or where do the home nations go, for argument's sake?
Well, that's what is lacking in clarity at the minute, isn't there? There's a bit of a cloud hanging over because it hasn't been made clear. I mean, I'm still not sure what statement England Darts have made, if I'm brutally honest with you.
It's not the best worded statement.
But it's a statement that says a decision's been made, but it doesn't specify what the decision is, from what I've read, unless there's a follow-up or an addendum or something. There's a few paragraphs that talk about a statement being made, a decision's been made, and why the decision's been made, but it doesn't specify what the decision is. So I'm very, very unclear, because it doesn't. And if anyone can find that statement and put a highlighter on what the decision is, I would appreciate it, because I'm convinced it's been like Google translated into Esperanto and back again, because I cannot figure out what it actually says in terms of a decision, which doesn't help. And I don't know whether that's purposefully not clear so that the WDF can't point. The WDF at the minute couldn't point to that statement and say you've banned so and so from playing, because they haven't. It doesn't say that in the statement at all. It doesn't. Nothing's in black and white.
It doesn't say it.
Yeah. So then I would say, if you are an organisation who wants to make a statement, make a statement. Say it. If you want to say something, say it. Don't just because that statement's getting you nowhere. Because I like to class myself moderately intelligent. I can't work out what the hell it says. I know what the decision is.
It's like making an announcement about an announcement, isn't it?
Yeah.
It literally,
or in a corporate world, having a meeting about having a meeting.
the statement literally says, this is a statement to say that we've made a decision. These are the reasons why we've made the decision. Thank you for coming. It doesn't tell you what the decision is. What is the decision? And then when you put the decision in black and white, if that's your decision and you as an organisation, that is your vision for the future, there are your values, that is what you are doing, and put it in black and white, and then everyone can move forward. The WDF can address whatever that statement is with whatever their structure of regulations are. All the players are very clear on what the situation is going forward. If I was a player and I read that statement, I wouldn't have a clue what it meant. If I'm being thick, I'm happy to put my hands up. If anyone can point out to me where in that statement it says a decision, please let me know. Because it's just confusing.
Yeah, we've had the conversation that it's not clear. But also off of the back of the weekend, Dita has put on her social that she won't be playing in the WDF European Cup in Slovakia. Obviously, we know the reasons and her stance. It says she wants to. England Darts are paramount to me. She's going to have self-funding to go and support the event and England, so she will be there, but will not be playing. That's on her social. But God, if the two leading bodies aren't going to change their stance, certainly one of them has no. We'll play the clip in a minute. Certainly has no plans to change their stance. Then I'm not saying everyone else has to get in line, because that's obviously wrong. But if it's not going to change at the top, what is one or two organisations, countries doing it going to have a big enough impact?
Potentially. Because if you start losing key players within those systems, like England Darts are a massive part of the WDF, as are organisations such as the Netherlands. Now, it's very clear which stance the Netherlands have taken, with two high-profile players withdrawing in the last few months from their women's team. But if you lose sides like that, that's when that impact starts becoming a little bit bigger. I think England leaving the European Union, right? That sent a few waves. Don't get me wrong, we're worse off for it right now, but it certainly got the ball rolling in a few other countries and conversations around independence elsewhere. If another country had gone independent from the EU within 18 months of Brexit, we could be having a very different conversation about the political landscape within England and Europe right now. As such, another nation didn't follow as yet. And that's a similar sort of effect that big nations leaving this organisation can and will have. The other thing is that there are now options elsewhere. The ADC exists, that those players might just leave that model and it wouldn't be a loss at all. I guess the frustrating or difficult thing that lies with the weekend that just happened is if you put out a statement saying that you intend to compete, to then have a moment where you think you aren't going to compete, Whether or not that was your intention when you first put the statement out, and that's changed since you've then arrived for whatever circumstance, that's the bit that I think will have drawn issue in. Because this wasn't ranked. This was carry on and do whatever you want. That's why Dieter agreed to play for England at this point. I believe there was pressure from other members of the England squad of either gender to say, if you're going to pull out, then we're not particularly keen on you being in the squad for this event. And that's where that statement then comes about. Dieter agrees to play, and then there becomes a moment at this tournament where that might not be the case. And look, whilst I understand that people's mindset might change a little bit or understand, but if you think putting yourself in that position is going to have that effect on you, then perhaps you shouldn't have been involved in that event in the first place. That's my criticism from this weekend. I've said this from the start. I am all for people's right to protest.
Yeah.
There is a case where you can believe in the rights of trans people and believe that there is an advantage gained by people who have transitioned at a later age in life over female participation. You are allowed those thoughts all at once. Not everything is X and Y completely divisive. You have to be left wing.
That is a very key point, and I'm really sorry to cut you off, but it's very important to remember that people should be able to hold more than one thought in their head at once. And that is often not the case. There are lots of occasions where I keep seeing, I dabble in some. I'm not a social media person really, but I dabble, and what I see is people who don't seem to be particularly able to hold more than one thought in their head at once, and it is a sign of intelligence that you are able to view something from more than one point of view, understand other people's point of view, understand why they think that way, even if you don't agree with it. And there doesn't seem to be a great deal of that I see at the moment. It seems to be very, very binary, there or there, and that's what's being expressed. I think it's frustrating, the lack of sort of wider thinking that people seem to be able to be capable or not be capable of, where it is completely fine to have a view and also understand other people, take the time to understand other people's, and also to understand why, your view might be completely valid, but you aren't able to exercise it and act upon it because of the construct with which we find ourselves in. There are loads of things about life that I would like to change, but I can't change them. They are the way they are, and sometimes you have to either get on the bus or get off the. You've got to sort of go with it or not, depending on what you want out of whatever's going on. The other thing is, this conversation is not going away. It's not a short-term conversation. This isn't something that we've finished talking about at Christmas. This is a conversation for the next 5 to 10 years. Less so in darts. Less so in darts.
The only way this ends is if organisations make it so that there is a men's category and an open category and a women's category, and that's the inevitable trend. Because if we're saying it's not going to go away,
that doesn't end the conversation, does it? Doesn't end the conversation. And darts, unfortunately.
How does it end the conversation? Because other sports have gone down that route where they have women who are biological women from birth all the way up to the moment they compete, and an open category where people who identify as trans or male or however else they may want to identify that isn't female from birth can compete. Are we saying that's the inevitable conclusion within sport? Are we saying that that's enough for people? Are we saying that that's a discriminatory practice in some sense? What is the solution here? If we're saying it's not going to go away, how do we end this conversation? Because at the moment,
what will happen
in sports have drawn a line in the sand and said, this is our policy. We're happy with trans participation in female sport in particular, and that's where we're going to sit.
What will happen is because I mean, first and foremost, darts is very different to 95% of sports where this conversation actually has more significance. like, and particularly combat sports. Like, I could bore you about bone density, but combat sports, it's very relevant. Swimming, it's very relevant. Lots of sports, it's very relevant. Like, darts will always suffer from people being able to say, but men and women can compete on an even playing field in darts. Like, people will say that, regardless of what your views are and whatever the truth actually is, people will continue to say it. If you want the hard and the answer on where this conversation ends is the conversation ends probably in the next 2 to 3 years when whichever government we have at the time legislates for it. The problem is, at the minute, is there is no legislation in this country or the European Union that covers this legislatively. Nobody can point at a particular article of legislation to say, well, these are obviously the rules we're applying in our sport because of that piece of legislation. Sooner or later, that will come. Somebody will do that. It might not be next year, it might not be the year after, it might not be, but it will come because it has to. Because and then when that's done,
difficult at international high performance level where there might be one rule in the UK, but Germany compete under a different rule, and then the IOC or FIFA or whoever have a decision to make that's different to what is then happening in the UK.
Yeah, but that's already the case, isn't it? Really, because if you look across the world, there are different rules about men and women playing sport in different countries. We're just lucky enough to live in a fairly progressive Western setting in Europe where we don't see a lot of that, and it's not very familiar and everyday to us. But once you start to get across, other parts of the world, you will see that there is already fairly strict legislation, and what that does is, and people will, and when that happens, people will come out on both sides of it. Like a lot of things, like you said Brexit. I mean, people will be one way or the other. People will say, well, I either want that to happen or that to happen. The positive that comes out of it is that no matter what the result is, no matter what that legislation dictates and says this or that, what it does is it stops everyone having to have a fucking conversation about it every single time it comes up. And it stops it having to be talked about 10, 11, 12 times a year. What it means is that whenever it comes up, they point to that piece of legislation and says, well, these are the rules, aren't they? Because it's the law.
Until the opposite side of government use that to get back in power in 3 years after that.
And then we start running world championships in Saudi Arabia and all fucking bets are off.
Look, we spoke to Matt on it. We'll play the PDC stance on it because by the sounds of this, there is absolutely no change coming.
No, I mean, we're entirely comfortable with our policy, and I think it's important to when you say the players' reactions, it's important to quantify that in terms of there's 100 women playing the women's series, and the number of players who are having a problem with it is small. So yeah. We're comfortable with our policy. Again, it falls under our safeguarding issues. It falls under our relationship with the DRA and the PDPA, and looking at the welfare of players and things like that. So it's something we're very aware of, something we're talking about on a regular basis with the right people to make sure that the right things are in place. But it's not something we're planning on making any significant changes on that.
So from a PDC point of view, it's set. It's there, it's done.
Yeah, and unless he's told it has to be so different, in which case he'll do it, won't he? Yeah, it's also like Matt's very good at his job, and he's also very good at what he just did there, which is like talking about his job. I think he speaks very, very well for a chief exec, and it wouldn't really do for somebody in his position to open an interview with, I think our policy's a bit crap. So I think he's always going to give you that, I think the policy's good. I think he's right in what he said. Well, he has to be right in what he says, otherwise he'd have a rebellion on his hand, wouldn't it? There clearly isn't there clearly isn't the amount of noise within that area of the PDC tour for him to make change, because it doesn't seem to even be on his radar that it'd be something he'd be thinking about. So I just don't think it's registering. I think it's I think it's a conversation that's going on far from him at the minute, which isn't a bad thing.
No, arguably not. But going back to what we were talking about, obviously the chaos of the home nations. Do we think it was handled correctly?
Am I happy that the game ultimately gets played? Yes. Do I think it's the right decision when it's first suspended from the night before? No. But I'd always urge for a resolution where the matter is settled on the board. Everybody involved played each other as they were supposed to. Ultimately, it was a stir the night before that was resolved on the board, and they carry on in the tournament as normal. But again, now it's brought up a talking point in the conversation, and I think this won't be the last we hear of it with this particular tournament in mind, by the sounds of it, given that Live Nation seem pretty intent on having a decision about the following year to come.
What he said?
Yeah. I'm with you. Look, I not just in darts, but in any sport, I don't think once the fixtures, scheduling and all that, for me, that's it. It's set in stone. It should be done when it's meant to be.
Especially if you're streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it weird that was the only game not streamed? Yes. Is it weird that it was only game played out of schedule? Yes. Would you prefer those things to be resolved at the time? Yes. Would you then be annoyed if you're a fan of one of those sides and you get punished? Whatever. Yes. Well, look, if they're happy to play the game, both sides agreed to it at the start, then fine, crack on at the end of the day.
Well, we'll stay on the home nations because we've got one from Matt and his experience of it, and it's an interesting take.
I find that it's our home nations that are getting it wrong. I went to Scotland, they got it wrong. I went to England, they got it wrong. I go over to Serbia, I go to Iceland, I go to the Faroe Islands. These are meant to be low-performing nations. They get it right. And I don't see why our home nations, with the experience level they've got, I think there's maybe too many chefs, too many voices, too many people with an opinion at that table.
Too many egos?
Possibly. And I think sometimes, and this is where maybe with investment or with time, the WDF should have a representative at every single event, so that representative has final say before the home nation. Because ultimately, it's the WDF that get the flack for this. And I saw the comments on my video I put out about how that event and the draw and the mistakes that was made. And people go, oh, the WDF's just another BDO. And it's like, well, the WDF weren't running this event. It was a different organisation. And then I thought, well, if you're going to get the flag for it, you need to stand up.
Protect yourself.
Yes. And ultimately, they will get the flag for it because they're the body that are going to award the ranking points, and they're the body that are going to use the results of that to arrange their major tournaments. So with that, I'd like to see a representative at every single event who has final say on everything, who goes, these are the seeds. Because it's not the first time I've seen seeding get wrong. So these are the seeds, this is how you do it, and do the draw with them. Where a lot of the time, we've got to remember, most of these organisations are run by volunteers. Volunteers who have probably never ran anything on a world or global scale like they're being asked to do. And sometimes these events have 600-700 people in, Dutch Open, thousands of people in. So that representative should be on site and make those calls and make those decisions. And if that happened, I think we'd get a more professional tour, and the events would be ran more professional and better. And those sort of questions and queries that come up, there's someone on site, there's a person to go and deal with that. So that would be my thing from spending some time this year on the WDF. I think that's lacking, a bit of representation.
Makes complete sense to me.
Thought he spoke very well.
Difficult to argue with anything he says. Makes complete sense.
By contrast to that, he did then go to Hungary at the weekend, and it was one of the worst tournaments I've ever been to in his life. So completely blaming the home nations isn't that issue, but there are rules that you follow slightly when you affiliate to the WDF or apply for WDF ranking points, etc. But there isn't this set like you said, there should be a rep present or somebody who's on call to make decisions if you need to phone them up at whatever time and go, this is a situation, this is happening. There should be the same structure to these open events in terms of seeding, in terms of format, in terms of all of that sort of stuff that goes on.
Just interested to see if he gets a private Facebook message and not invited to Home Nation events for criticising the organisers.
Very interesting to see. Very unlikely.
Well, Scotland darts will find that, or Scottish darts will find that soon enough, that don't bite the hand that feeds you. Yeah. But it was an interesting weekend. Staying on the WDF, we have a new WDF world number one in Ben Robb, which great for him. Interesting if he has to make the decision come December, which World Championship he plays in. Because obviously in that same interview with Matt Porter, that decision hasn't changed for both the men and the women. So if Bo wins the match play in a couple of weeks, she will have to make the decision again this year.
We know which decision she'll make. It's just what they do with that plate, isn't it? It's, do we want... I get it follows the pattern of the other tours, and we've had this conversation last year that actually ultimately it did go to the right place. Would it be nice to see it go down to women's rankings? Yes. Is it in comparison with everything else that the PDC do in terms of other events and affiliate nations or tours to qualify for that tournament? Yes. Is it slightly different in that the PDC don't have a women's world championship and that gender is still a massive part of in the sport? Yes, probably.
For me, I agree with what you said, but when they introduced 3 women to the World Championship, that was the celebrating and the selling point that we are going to go and see 3 women in the World Championships from now on. And year one's the only time we've seen it.
Might be the only time we see it for the foreseeable. It just depends, doesn't it? Because whilst we sit here and go, yes, it will be brilliant if Bo decides not to play for it to go to the 4th ranked player or the next ranked player eligible on that system, then every other system kick off.
That's the difficulty, is there's too much precedent elsewhere, and you, if you want parity and you want it to be fair and equal, then it has to be so, and you have to act it. You can't just say it. You have to walk the walk at the same time.
On that case, then, should the women's series have tour cards and UK Open spots? Because the other tours that you're talking about, the Challenge Tour and the Dev Tour,
yes, it should
have those prizes that go with it.
Yep.
Or is the sacrifice that these tours have these privileges, the women's series, the privilege is that it goes down? Is that the trade?
No, I'd rather it be uniform.
Yep.
I'm just giving you the scenarios.
No, I think it should be the same across the board. I think if you're going to apply the selection criteria for a World Championship spot, then you have to apply the same tour card qualification spot. I've got absolutely, in fact, well, not that I haven't got a problem with it, but I would actively like to see tour card awarded in the women's tour. I would happily. The next question then, though, is what do you then do with that tour if the tour card's not back? Do you then go to the next line down, or do you apply another more wider overarching framework? You know, what happens if whoever wins is what happens if whoever wins a tour card off the Dev Tour down? You just go to the next spot down.
Yeah.
Do the same then, don't you?
Yeah, look, I'd like to see the 3 women at Ali Pally. I understand. I understand why the men have to choose. But I don't think whether it's Bo, Fallon, Makuru, Lisa, Noel, whoever. I don't think they should have to choose. personally. But it is what it is. On that, also in that interview with Matt, he hinted on changes in 2026. What do you think the potential changes could be on the revamps we're seeing?
I'd like to see quite a bit. What I am worried about is it means we end up with the same stale issues that we've had before. That doesn't really mean that we're in for a Premier League change. That's the big one. They're going to sit behind record numbers, record viewing figures, record ticket sales and say that the format's working. I'm still not convinced. No matter what you say about that one, I think that the sport is just experiencing a boom and people are going to lap it up regardless. I don't think that makes for a watchful series for 16 weeks of the year. I think we're still going to have the same issues with the Grand Slam. I think they've fixed some of them, haven't they?
Some, not all.
But it still feels like that needs something to give it a spark back. That used to be the BDO versus the PDC system. Now, if you're going to go down this hole, it's the best players we've got versus all the affiliates, then it sort of feels like the affiliates are going to struggle to compete, whether that be the Dev Tour players or the Women's Series players or whatever. It just feels like it's a bigger chance for the top guys to earn that even more because they're not playing players in the top 32. They're playing players in the 74 or whatever, and beyond that. Doesn't feel like we're going to get any changes in terms of scheduling. Things like the Grand Prix could do with an extra day somewhere, so we're not playing multiple major matches on the same day. At the end of the tournament when players are knackered, that sort of thing. The one thing I am really concerned about is at some point the PDC are going to do away with the true amateur qualifiers into the UK Open.
I think it's inevitable.
And that would be a
big no-no. Is that not, like, if we're honest, is that not more down to the steady decline of Riley's than it is the UK Open?
But I think
and then not having a viable partner.
Yeah. Finding a partner to host them couldn't and shouldn't be that difficult. You could open applications for independent venues to say, these are the standards you have to meet. You have to have X amount of boards labeled this way. You have to have X amount of space between these boards so you can get up tablets or whatever that actually don't really apply to Riley's at the minute. I've seen the state of some of the practice boards or facilities that they provide elsewhere. We've heard the stories of Norwich a few years ago where they're using rests from the pool table as hockeys, for Christ's sake. Like, those sort of things don't exist. There are venues out there now. You think of how many academy venues there are, etc., that provide X number of boards. These places can and will apply, possibly even for a fee, because if they take a percentage of the entry money that comes in, because you think how many players rock up for this as a darts tournament, or the value that they're going to do behind the bar for the day and all of that sort of thing, there's money to be made for these venues to host these, and you can take applications, sit down and place them strategically throughout the country, as well as weigh up which ones are the best venues to be using and all of that sort of thing. It just takes some work doing, or you host them yourselves. How much equipment have you got that you move between Milton Keynes and Wigan and Leicester, etc.? You could have a regional hub of going, right, we're having 2 of these a day for a weekend and run 2 or 3 weekends of qualifiers, and the top 2 go through to the UK Open, and just have people who actually then get to play in a PDC environment that perhaps have never done it. If you get people rocking the UK qualifiers, admittedly, there then would be more travel involved, possibly a higher cost, but people would still go for the experience, much more so than paying £500-600 to go to Q School. If they've been in that environment, they have a good run, they win 3 or 4 games, they might go, do you know what, I'm pretty comfortable here. I'll have a crack at Q School the following year.
My gut says, I think to start with, they will reduce the number of amateur qualifiers and give more places to their affiliate tours. And the women's, I think more spaces will come from in their own environment. That's what they've spent the last 10, 12 years creating, is their own circuits, that they don't need anyone else. And
I will say, if they do that, they need to change the name. It's not an open.
Yeah.
Some of the European tournaments still have open in their name, and because you can whack in as a home nation qualifier, if you prove the ability to qualify as a complete amateur that isn't affiliated to that circuit, you have to change the name of the tournament. That's not an open anymore. It's not an open anymore. It's such a pedantic point, but it's not an open anymore at that point.
Yeah, they won't change the name of it, not a chance. But
they'll just say it's an open draw.
But let's be honest, the day of the rank amateur qualifying for the UK Open isn't the same as what it was. The qualifiers are all almost semi-pros, names we know, names that have just dropped off the tour. It's not like the old days where they were rank amateurs.
Some, not all. You still do get ones out of nowhere.
But before it was all ones that we know, where that doesn't exist anymore.
No, but Alex Roy won for every year. He was a former tour card holder. He was on the longest running players in there because he kept qualifying. There was always a couple that snuck through that way. Paul Hogan is a man who's made a career out of being a professional amateur, if that even exists. Right? He qualified a number of times. You're going to get those. And yes, we are seeing that a little bit more. Leonard Gates coming over and winning one last year. Jim Long tried to qualify through Victoria because he was in the country at seniors qualifier. You're going to get a few people chancing around to get into that. But it shouldn't matter where they play elsewhere. The same way that it doesn't matter within the seniors. We get plenty of people coming to us going, well, he shouldn't play. He's too good. He's just dropped off. Or that's not fair. He plays elsewhere, like David Cameron or Jim Long or Leonard Gates. He plays on the American circuit. It's not fair. He still plays on a circuit. He is over the age of 50 and doesn't have a tour card. Then be the rules for the seniors.
That's the rules.
The rules to go to this qualifier for a UK Open spot should be that you don't have a tour card. And for me, it should be slightly added to that. It should be you weren't at Q school that year.
Ooh, that's wild.
Or maybe played on the Challenge Tour the year before, shall we say? Because if you played on the Challenge Tour the year before and were at Q School the year before, then at that point, you've had a chance to qualify through the Challenge Tour Order of Merit.
But that's like then 500-600 players wiped off.
And you still get people rocking up because now the chance for someone else to rock up and generate these stories.
I don't like that idea. If you're going to keep it, if you're going to keep the amateur qualifiers, it has to be just the rules are if you haven't got a tour card, you can do it.
You just said you don't like that, so I come up with a solution.
What I'm saying is if you're going to keep it, then by definition, if you haven't got a tour card, you're classed as an amateur.
Well, then don't complain when Leonard Gates qualifies.
I haven't. But what I'm saying is I think they will get rid of it in time. I think it will be a gradual decline. And then it will all be self-serviced from their own feeders.
Scandalous.
Is it?
I just love. I don't like the idea.
I know you love the event, but
yeah. It's one of my favourite events of the year, and I enjoy the idea that there's almost a romance about that amateur qualifying element of it. The idea that anybody in the country can turn up and play darts and win some matches and get to play in a PDC major event on a stage against potentially a former world champion. It's just.
I get the romantic side of it.
It's quite a beautiful and romantic thing, and I genuinely think that if people who don't think that losing that detracts from that one thing in that one event, that losing that detracts from the darting calendar, then I feel for them because
you are Skywalker.
They are lost. They are lost because
Yeah.
How do you not find that fun and exciting and novel and cool? Like, I'm not saying like let's do that for every event. It's one event that we do that for. There has to be a partnership agreement that can be done in order to service qualifiers. Like it just has to be able to be done. And I think that the tournament itself would be worse off for not having them. Spotting that multi-board room when you're there, spotting people in a red t-shirt. I would do away with the red t-shirts as well. But spotting someone that you can spot in a room, like there's a qualifier. Who are they? I don't know. Like everyone's googling to find out who the fucking hell that bloke is. Like that. Without that. The event is less. It's less special. It's everything that makes that event special. You've taken one element of it away. It's less special then.
Take warning from the Grand Slam. You have to take warning from the Grand Slam. Whether you like the organisation or not, the magic of the Grand Slam has always and will always have been that it was PDC versus BDO. That you've got to see those matchups once a year that you don't see anymore. Now, the decline of the BDO certainly isn't the PDC's fault. Do I think there's something going to start working with a WF and give 8 handouts? No, I don't.
No.
But there's absolutely no way that people can sit there and tell me they look forward to the Grand Slam and seeing 8 players or 4 from the development or whatever else the same way that they used to look forward to Martin Adams potentially going up against Phil Taylor for the first time in 10 years. Or Scott Waite's coming over and potentially winning it without holding a tour card. Like, those stories, those opportunities, whilst they're away from the PDC banner, are what made that event special. And what makes the UK Open special, yes, is the draw, yes, is having the multi-board venue and whatever, but it's also the fact that from round 1, you have potentially your next door neighbour playing in that event.
That's it. Like you could list 10 things that make that event special. As soon as you take one of them away, you've made it less special. And therefore, I'll say that's a bad idea because I love that event. It's very special.
I still look forward to the Slam more than the Grand Prix.
You are truly lost.
Do you know why? Because there's comfier seats in the boardroom where they sit and do the media.
That's part of the reason.
Yeah, exactly. Like your decision is based on what is better for your backside for a week.
It's not. I like the group stages of the Grand Slam more than I do the double in start.
If the Grand Prix was back in Ireland, would you stay the same? No.
Yes.
No, you wouldn't. Would you get a week in Ireland? Don't lie to me, Philip.
I would. I'm not a fan of the Grand Prix.
The Grand Prix is not a fan of you.
Right, we're going to finish it on 2 clips from Matt about the Worlds. One will please God, and the other one maybe won't.
So, when that happens, I'll say,
Yeah.
Are we at the point now where Ali Pally, the hall that we are you looking at the Great Hall?
No.
Or
no,
is it
no.
extra sessions for demand?
There's other ways of doing it. Yeah, the Great Hall, I think I've said this before, the Great Hall it doesn't work to reverse the event.
Yeah.
Because the space that we need for everything else that goes with the World Championship doesn't fit in the rest of Alexandra Palace. So that's another thing when we look at the future of the World Championship, what we can do. Nowhere in the world creates the atmosphere that those 3,200 fans do in the West Hall at Alexandra Palace. But clearly that 3,200 could be 6,400 with the demand that we've got for the event. So the Great Hall is a very, very difficult scenario and not one that we think is practical as things stand at the moment.
Yeah.
So, we'd have to look at other ways.
So, I'm just putting 2 and 2 together, and I might be way off.
Yeah.
Potentially, are we going to see an expansion of the World Championship field then with extra sessions?
Maybe, but you've got to be careful not to dilute the quality. If we do it, it has to be done at the right time with the right quality. But we've done that before, the World Championship, I think when I started, was 24 players, maybe 32.
Yeah, so I remember it was 24.
And then 48, 64, 68. We had 68, which was a bit strange when we had that little preliminary round. But and then 72 and now 96. So, that's only gone one way.
Or is that not something that...
I mean, ever's a very difficult word to give an accurate answer to, because what do you mean by ever? In 100 years' time? In 50 years' time? In
the
25
near,
years'
in
time?
the near future, shall we say?
Saudi Arabia is obviously investing heavily in sport, and they've invested in other sports that Matchroom, the PDC's parent company, deliver. But we put on our best event at Alexandra Palace. We put on the world's most loved darts event. We put on the biggest darts event at Alexandra Palace. We're not that well known for making silly decisions, I'd like to think.
100%.
Some of your viewers may disagree, but generally we like to think we don't make that many silly decisions. It would be a little bit of a strange move just to go straight from Alexandra Palace to a country that's never ever had a darts tournament before with your biggest event.
Yeah.
So it's not something that I think is necessarily in the immediate future. Who knows what the long-term future will bring? You know, I mean, as I say, it's an ever-changing world. But the World Championship is a phenomenal success at Alexandra Palace. They're a great venue for us. So it's certainly not top of our priorities to find a new venue for the World.
One bit you'll like, God, one bit you won't.
Well, all of it was all right, wasn't it?
What, the World going... Look, first of it, no Saudi Arabia for the World is obviously a good thing.
Yeah, sack that off.
But the World's, he is going to 128 for the demand. Is that a good thing? No Great Hall, because I know you were you wanted the Great Hall.
Well, yeah, it's just bigger, isn't it? If it's not possible, though, it's not possible. If you have to put more sessions on, fine. If you want to generate more revenue for 12 days, then carry on. 17 to fucking 25 days at this rate. But be aware that I have other commitments for the first week of the tournament. So you're on your own part. It's not me you should be worried about. It's your health, because you've been off Red Bull and Monster for God knows how long. You're going to be straight back on that Ali Pali because you're going to need it.
Hey, I haven't caved.
Yeah, you'll be hosting fallouts on one while you're editing on the other.
I just like it to be easier to buy a ticket. That's
Well,
all.
this is why they're going to have to put extra sessions on.
Yeah, I was hoping for an expanded room purely for more opportunities to purchase tickets, because it's a challenging thing to do to secure decent tickets, especially in the family area at Ali Pali. Family area is very small.
Yeah.
And I can't be putting my kids around all those mutants that hang around on the seats.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we are deep into Fergie time, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed tonight's show, gents. It's been good. It's been balanced, which has been good.
And the Premier Inn Wi-Fi held up as well.
Yes.
It's done very well tonight. Very well.
Yes.
I'm going to keep trying to do this show from various different hotels around the country. It'll be quite a fun thing to start to rank the hotel Wi-Fi.
This will be available as an audio only in the morning from all good podcast providers. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't yet, make sure you drop us a like and subscribe. All social media platforms, we have you covered. Off to the World Cup, so plenty of content coming your way. I've been Phil Bars, Jack Garwood, Dan Simpson. It is us signing out, and we'll see you all very, very soon.
Bye.